Successful people are successful for a reason. It's because they set the intention to be. My name is Darius.
And I'm Carmen. By the end of this video, we are going to share with you 4 points that you can start taking action on today to create more abundance in your life. So before we get into those points, go ahead and subscribe to our channel and hit the notifications bell to be notified when we post new videos.
Let's talk about success. So Carmen and I, we were fortunate enough to be able to surround ourselves with other successful people. Now, that was just the first step because we had to then identify what's the difference between the two. Not saying that you need to compare yourself to anybody, but...
Or you shouldn't.
Or you shouldn't.
Do not compare
yourself. But there are key things that some people are doing that you aren't. And the first thing that came to mind is the mindset. Now, we talk about mindset often, and that's kind of like a general statement, but what are some of the key things that they were practicing that we weren't? Mm-hmm. Well, one of the first points that we understood is that when you think of your mindset or the way you think, it's like a garden. Now, when I first thought of a garden, when you think of a garden, you have to think about what you plant is going to be what sprouts. So you have to be intentional about what you plant because that's what you're going to receive. That's what you're going to get. That's what's going to be the fruit or the vegetable that you receive. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a lot of work that goes into a garden. Carmen and I, when we lived in Houston, Texas, we decided to have a garden. And it was a lot of work and it was hot. We had tomatoes, we had jalapenos, we had onion. We had a couple other things. I don't know what it is at the moment, but we had some stuff in our garden and it was hard work. And if we didn't tend to that garden as often as we should, weeds started to grow. It's the same thing that happens when we think about our mindset.
You said, it sounded like you said weed started to grow. Weeds.
Weeds started to grow.
Sorry. That country twang, baby.
Well, in any event, you know what I'm trying to say. Weeds started to grow out of this garden. Now, our mindset and our thinking is exactly the same. If we don't plant the right things in our mind, weeds are starting to grow. It will start to grow.
Now, the point that I want to also echo with what everything was what Darius was talking about is watch what you have in your life. Like, take stock of what you have in your life. Look around, look at the people that are in your life, look at the things that you possess, because really that is the result of your thoughts. Mm-hmm. We have to reverse engineer this whole process because if you want success, if you want riches, if you know that you're destined for more, then you have to think about what's happening in here. Because if you're thinking that you're a victim, if you are having negative thoughts or putting yourself down, but you know that you're destined for greatness, it all has to start up here. And we have to start reprogramming our mind, fixing our inputs, whatever is coming in, meaning whatever you're surrounding yourself with, as far as, just your environment, people, places, things, and changing your environments so those inputs can be more positive and more serving to you so that it can help you get to the next point. Because I know for Darius and I, when we were, realizing that we could do more with our lives, we looked around and although we had a nice house, we had good friends, we recognized that we were all at the same point. And we didn't want the lifestyle that our friends at the time had. And we recognized that we could do more. And in order for us to do more, we had to surround ourselves with people who had more, who were doing more. And just having those little shifts really started to change things for us because at that point, those individuals challenged us to think differently, to have different thoughts because we couldn't move on to the next step with the same thoughts that we had. And we knew that it was going to take some sacrifice. There was going to be some moving and grooving that we had to do. I mean, literally, we downsized from having a 3-bedroom home, single family home, to living in a studio over the course of 3 years, because what we identified was we very much value our time more and more and more. And we recognized that we were essentially a slave to things. We were consuming, we had to have all the nice things, but those things were running us. And that's what kept us from achieving success because we were so busy spending money and consuming.
Yeah. Now, the reason why that happened is we failed to plant the right seeds in our minds. And when you don't plant the right seeds in your mind, something is going to get planted there, whether it be from you or somebody else. And when it comes from somebody else, you're being programmed. If you don't put something in that place, you'll be programmed for what the world wants you to do. And the world at the time wanted us to be materialistic and work for this house and work for this new car when we started to understand that because of the people that we had around us, we started to think differently and started to prune our garden and started to take care of our garden and what we plant in it.
So the very first point in summary is, if you want to know what you're thinking, look at what you have and identify, is this what I want?
Now, point number 2, I jumped ahead a little bit and gave it to you in the first point, but I want to actually hone in on this because I think it was a really good point. If you're not thinking for yourself, then you'll be programmed to think what the world wants you to think. What does that look like in your life if you're not thinking for yourself?
That's heavy. I hope you guys got that. If you are not thinking for yourself, then basically the world is going to tell you how to think, right? Because think about it as we're thinking, right? Watch the news, look at your environments, look at all the marketing and everything that is being shown to you. You are always being persuaded to do something. Oh, I was like, what are you, what are you doing? So if you are constantly looking at your phone, watching Instagram, watching other videos and content that isn't serving you, then that's just going to be seeds that are planted in your garden that we talked about before that are going to eventually grow weeds or grow a bush that just is out of control that you have to tend to if you decide to tend to. So although a lot of the things that we're talking about in today's video isn't how to make money, what we recognized was we had to fix our mind, because the minute that we changed our mind, our life changed because of the thoughts and the inputs that we decided to now own. And it's just a matter of fixing those things because we decided that we wanted to have ownership. We wanted to own our own lifestyle and own every facet of our life and not necessarily be told or persuaded to do specific things because somebody, off the street said that they thought that it was good for me. At the end of the day, nobody knows what's better for me than myself. Same thing for Darius, for yourself. You have to be true and honest to what it is that you want, and you have to be relentless in getting it.
Right, and what that means for us is that meant turning off the TV. That meant turning off the TV for
selling our house.
Selling our house, because we when it came to our house, we were working for the house. Mm-hmm. We were working for the house, and a lot of people may not understand exactly what we're saying right now. We're saying that we were working for the house, but it's not supposed to be like that. And we realized that when we were taught this, mm-hmm. we were taught something different. We were taught one thing leading up to our connection and relationships with other successful people. But when they actually sat us down and told us these things, it was really important for us to not just listen, but to take action.
Mm-hmm. And how does this relate to everything that we talk about with regards to life insurance? At the end of the day, the Wealth Nation channel is all about teaching you about financial literacy and how to take ownership over your finances. And that's why we have to talk about the entire gamut, because if we don't do the due diligence to share with you mindset pieces, then you're always going to be chasing a buck because you haven't changed your mind. And in addition to that, if you don't value your time, if you don't value money, then you're going to overlook extremely important financial products in your life, like life insurance, to ensure that you can protect your family and protect your loved ones should something happen to you, because at the end of the day, nothing is guaranteed.
In my opinion, when it comes to life insurance, is just a contract with cash in it, and there's different levels of access to that cash. One of them, you have to die and then your family gets access to the cash. The other level is you're able to borrow or withdraw that money and then you have access to the cash. It's a contract with cash in it. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. It's a contract with cash, and you have access to a pool of funds. That's cash. Mm-hmm. What do successful people value the most is not the cash itself, but access to it for them to make financial decisions or to take advantage of financial opportunities that they're presented with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Are you looking for a life insurance policy specifically designed to help you accomplish your financial goals?
And if you have a policy, or if you're looking for more education, would you like to be a part of a community with like-minded individuals who are all using life insurance to accomplish their financial goals? If so, click on the link below. We would love for you to join the Wealth Nation Money School. So point number 3, moving on, like we said, get your thoughts so that you can then lead to intention. And what we mean with intention is you have to create a plan. Winners don't just happen to win. They have a plan. They are training. They are studying. They are making sure that they are strategic every step of the way.
And that's before the season starts.
On the off season,
That's on
right?
the off season.
That's on the off season. So like we said before with our garden, if you plant tomatoes, don't be surprised if tomatoes come up. But if you plant nothing, don't be surprised if nothing shows up or some garbage comes your way because you weren't intentional with doing anything about it. So going back to the ownership and the thoughts, what are you planting in your garden? What intention are you taking with your finances, for example? So with your finances today, if you don't have a budget, if you don't have a plan, then that means your money is running you and you are not telling your money where to go. Every single dollar has to have a direction. You have to be telling it what to do, because if you aren't telling it what to do, then it's going to be telling you what to do. And that is where we are not being intentional with our spending. And that's how this whole thing gets out of whack.
Or somebody else is going to have a plan for your money because they have a better plan than you. And the thing is, what you focus on expands. And I like the analogy that you used about athletes and the fact that there's an off season. There's no off season when it comes to money, and it doesn't take any breaks. So
no holidays
or any of that stuff. So when you think about how much effort we're putting into our thinking and how we make decisions with our money, we should always be working to make better decisions, to get better, to work on making that muscle stronger. Because the whole point of this is we can't do anything without it. We can't do anything worth doing without money. Yes, we can be happy because that's a decision. Yes, we can love one another because that's a decision that we get to make. But when it comes to our day-to-day, the roof over our head requires money, because we have a mortgage, and that mortgage requires us to make a payment on that mortgage, or we won't have roof over our head. When we go to the grocery store, they're not being paid with love. They're being paid with cash. So it's required for us to make money so that we can eat. The bare necessities of being a human being is food, water, and shelter. And those things cannot be fulfilled without money. So we need to really take this seriously, not the money itself, but the actions that it takes in order for us to make this whole process a little easier for ourselves.
And I don't know if you all heard it. One word that Darius said is it's a decision. And there's really, if you can think about it, there is no difference between the decision that you make today to get up and eat breakfast versus the decision to start today and create a plan for your finances.
Or decision to be successful, period.
Yeah, there's no difference in any of those things, because the decision is something that you decide in an instant. Yes, I'm going to eat breakfast. Yes, I'm going to create a plan. Or no, I'm not going to create a plan because I have too much going on today. All that means is just you don't prioritize it and you're not being intentional. So remember where you are placing your decisions, what decisions are serving you, and reevaluate how to get yourself on the right track so that you can live up to your full potential.
Right. And if we're keeping it 100, then what keeps you from making a decision? Fear. Fear keeps you from making a decision. And that's a thought that you have. That's
a limitation that you are keeping.
Exactly. That's a limitation that you're fighting for. Fear is something that you're fighting for that keeps you from doing what you need to do to be successful. So don't fight for those limitations. Fight to get over those limitations that you set for yourself.
Fuego. All right. So moving on to the fourth point, and this may hurt some of y'all, but again, if we keep it at 100, it's all about not letting people or things own you. Sit on that one for a minute.
Yeah, and this comes full circle from what we were discussing about
our house.
Our house.
Yeah, our house
owned us.
Yes, could we afford it? Yes, but our house owned us. We woke up every single day because we knew that we had to pay for a house, we had to pay for electricity, we had to pay for air conditioning. We were working for those things to ensure that the bills could get paid.
But could we afford it? We could afford the payments, but could we afford the house?
Oh, yeah, no.
We could afford to make those monthly payments, but
we couldn't write one check.
We couldn't write one check. And
so we couldn't afford it. Because if you're new to the Wealth Nation channel, if you can afford something, you can pay for it twice, no problems. We couldn't pay for that house once, let alone twice.
Right. So it wasn't a good financial decision. Now, most of you might be watching this video said, like, there's nobody that can afford a house, and if they could afford the house, just write a check for it. No, that's not a good decision. Even if you could afford to that entire house, you don't just write a check for an entire house. You need to have the option and the ability to. The reason why you don't do that is because it locks your money up in that house and you don't have easy access to it to go and get other investments.
Yeah, and you have to put into perspective too, back in the day, our grandparents, our great-grandparents could probably buy a house outright. Why? Because inflation wasn't effing crazy, right? We can't afford to buy houses these days, which is why renting is an option. But for whatever reason, we got it in consumers' head that like you're poor if you're renting or you can't afford, when really no. Like you shouldn't get into a loan and pay payments and pay interest on something for 30 years if you can't afford it outright. Like just think about it, because you're going to spend what is the percentage of how much more you're going to pay over?
Well, anything over 4.5% over a $250,000 mortgage is going to be double in interest over the 30-year period.
Exactly. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. What she said. But hold on, because you guys gotta get this point right, because I can't tell you how many people tell us that my house is an asset. Your house is not an asset. Your house is taking money out of your pocket because it's costing you every single month, and these are different thoughts that you have to comprehend. That's why we're here, folks. You're welcome.
Now, I wanted to talk about the mentality, because you mentioned that our grandparents thought differently about money.
Yeah.
Well, I know my grandmother, when she was very, very young, her parents was coming off of the Great Depression. So with that experience, there was a different mindset or mentality that was put into Americans' mind about how they should manage their funds. They didn't want to buy anything that they can't own outright.
Yeah.
So that set a different
Priority.
and priority for those people in that generation moving forward.
That was ownership.
That was ownership because of the experience that they had. We haven't had that experience in a very long time of something to the scale of the Great Depression. We've had the 2008 housing market. We've had down markets. We had recessions, but none to that extent.
I agree. That's a very good point. Very good point. And just going back to, you can put whatever spin you want on it. If you want to talk about, biblical stuff, you can say the borrower is a slave to the lender. However you want to put a spin on it, at the end of the day, you have to make payments to somebody. And if you have to make payments, then you are not owning something and you're working for that thing. So going back to, again, thinking about the mindset, we talked about what are you thinking? What are the inputs? We talked about being intentional. And if you are intentional, then you can see immediately the payments that are not serving you on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, whatever it is that you have to continue to pay for in order to claim ownership. And something that Darius alluded on earlier, where this financial industry is created for you to give them money. So all you're doing is literally surrendering your cash and giving it to the industry who is asking of it from you, but you're the one who's doing all the work.
Sounds like slavery to me.
Sound like massa to me. But right? Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. It just kind of caught me off guard, because when you think about it, all of the hard work we go into, and even when you do decide to look at the news, some of the issues that people have with one another is they feel like there's this sense of difference, and one person is better than the other. But all that is created for a reason, because when people have adversity or issues, they make decisions differently.
All adversity is misunderstanding.
And these misunderstandings make people make different financial decisions, or make financial decisions that's not in their best interest. And not just
because
financial decisions,
uninformed.
They make decisions that's not in their best interest, and there's still a profit to be made with every decision that we make. Every decision we make has a financial opportunity or implication for it. May not be for you, but for somebody else. And if it is for you, it may be that you are giving your money up to somebody else. Every decision that we make, or decision that we don't make, or fear that we have, is an opportunity for somebody to make money. And most of the time is not us, is not the individual.
No, it's not coming back to
you. We can see it in our market. We can see it in the wealth gap. We can see it in the concentration of wealth in the top 1, 2, 3%.
Yeah. So I would say in conclusion, folks, this is how life works. If you don't put your best foot forward, then somebody's going to put it forward for you, right? And this can be money, this can be your life, this can be your relationships, this can be anything that you do. If you are not being intentional with every action or every facet of your life, then it's going to be taken from you, which is why we always say own your own lifestyle, or someone else will. That's what we're talking about. The someone else will. Somebody else is going to make money from you. Somebody else is going to get your girl. Somebody else is going to get your car. The list goes on, right? Just think about it. You have to set the intention.
100%. I can't say it any better than that or any clearer. The only thing I can say is if you want more information on life insurance, then check out our next video where we talk about life insurance from an insurance agent's perspective and how you can use it to make more money.
And say it with me, family, own your own lifestyle or someone else will.